Get my live view practice in. Okay, what's up? Welcome everyone. Rapid Fire Golf season 2 finale here at a different time, 12 p.m. on Monday. Hope everyone is doing well. If you guys haven't been here before, Rapid Fire Golf, you ask your golf questions, I will answer them rapidly. And so when the questions start coming in, you can post them up whenever you want. I will hop in and we'll rock and roll. See how our group is. I guess we didn't do last week, huh? We're coming off a week of no rapid fire. So there should be so many golf questions. Feels good for a little layoff. Sometimes you need a little layoff. Okay, how do you stop hitting the ball fat? So with all these things, you have to figure out first why the fat shot's happening. And that could really be a couple of different things. A couple of pieces I would start with if I was hitting the ball fat is I would for sure put an object behind the ball for feedback. That could be something as simple as a towel that's rolled up behind the golf ball. That could be something a little bit more in your way, but something for feedback where I would swing over that. If you search my name in fat shots, you'll see the drills with this. And then what I would be looking at first would be setup, weight distribution, and shaft lean. So I would make sure I'm at least 50-50, maybe 60-40 on my left. Have the handle forward, hands inside left thigh. That'd be piece one. Piece two, I'd make sure, like right now I have a shadow here during my backswing. Does my head and body and hips stay pretty centered, or do I move off the ball a lot? I'd rather my hips turn basically right over the middle of my feet with my head staying pretty darn centered. And then I would look during the downswing, do my hips get forward and up of that line? So those would be kind of some checkpoints I'd start with, would be object behind the ball, set up, hands forward, weight forward, keeping pretty centered on the way back, and then moving forward and up on the way through to move the low point more forward. That's where I'd start. And then there could be a lot of minor stuff in there, like, is your right arm too straight? Do you need to keep your trail arm bent longer? Is your trail wrist throwing early? Do you need to keep your trail wrist bent a little bit longer? So keeping your trail arm and wrist more bent longer as you're turning and getting your weight more forward. Those would be the kind of variables that I'd look at without seeing the swing. Len, could you please explain how far your sternum and belt buckle moves from your body center line throughout the golf swing? Yeah, so not a lot during the backswing, and then quite a bit during the follow through. So let's assume I take a setup position and we have belt and sternum location. Now, the longer the club, the more my sternum is going to be slightly behind my belt line because I have tilt. The shorter the club, I have no tilt. My belt buckle and sternum are right on top of each other. Now, when I make a backswing motion, early on in the backswing, that sternum and belt buckle are pretty darn on top of each other, still stacked pretty good. Late backswing, a lot of times my sternum will be slightly to the right of my belt buckle. Not a lot, though. I'm still pretty centered. As I move forward then, my belt buckle is slightly more forward of my sternum location as I'm moving forward and turning. And that belt buckle is a little bit more forward of my sternum all the way into this follow-through position where my belt buckle is more forward. So it starts pretty much the same, upper body slightly to the right. It stays pretty much the same. The shirt button slightly to the right of the lower body. That relationship stays the same all the way down and all the way through with the belt buckle pushing forward. So here's where I started. Here's a line over my left hip. This is where my belt buckle pushes forward and up to. So that's roughly from here to here, how much it moves forward and up. If you search my name and how to shift and turn like the pros, it'll talk about that a little bit more. Scott, getting stuck in my full swing, mostly on downswing, very scary. Any thoughts on how to get out of this rut? Yeah, 100%. I think, Scott, if you could post your swing up in the group, we could take a look at it and see what's going on mechanically. If you're getting stuck in your full swing, I don't know if you mean just in general or like stuck in literal stuck where like the club's too far behind you. If you mean stuck like a rut, like I don't know what's going on, that's different. A lot of variables there. If you mean stuck too far behind you, you know, there's a couple pieces to start with. I would start with the video we did on how to fix your hook video we did. So you would put some form of object behind you to get the club more in front of you. That could start as simple as a bucket between your feet and the golf ball like this. So if I took the plane of my shaft, pulled it back, put an object just underneath that, if I got too stuck from the inside, I'd hit that. So I want to feel like I keep the club more on top of that as I come down and through. And then the next layer to that again, assuming you mean stuck like swing plane too far under, would be you having a stick here kind of through your trail hip where you need to keep the club on top of and not get stuck and too far underneath. Those would be like the starting points to fixing swinging too far from the inside, if that's what you mean. Let's see, Len, how would you recommend checking for checkpoint for full shoulder turn and backswing with my live view? Len, if you search my name and backswing turn, search my name and you need backswing turn, there's 10 minutes that answers that to a T. There's a drill with a club across your shoulders, club across your foot. So I won't redo that. Search my name and backswing turn, and you'll see that drill. That's specifically how you should do it. How does right hand influence in increasing speed? Yeah, I don't think anything that specifically that we need to talk about in terms of speed with the right hand versus left. I mean, your hands in terms of creating speed are going to hinge vertically up and down, and that creates speed, just like if I was chopping wood like this. So the right hand will hinge up and hinge down. That creates speed. And then there's back and forth that creates speed. So this way and this way are the two things that my right, not really my hand, that's really my wrist joint doing that, here to here and here to here. So when I throw it this way, that will create speed. And when I hinge up and then unhinge, that will create speed. So the throw to flexion and the unhinged to ulnar deviation both create speed that you're doing in the swing. And then there's trail arm motion, right? There's trail arm going from bent to extended. There's the arm going from a supinated position to a pronated position. So that also will create speed. So the extension of the arm at the elbow, the going from supinated palm up to palm down pronation creates speed. The trail shoulder internal rotation will create speed. Now all that stuff closes club face as well. So there's multiple things. So, but that would be right hand's influence on speed. Darren, Eric, having trouble hitting low shots when in trouble. Nice to see you, new glove. Yeah, thanks. Darren, I would say for low shots, if you search my name and punch out or punching out of the trees, we did a YouTube video on the course this a while ago. But the baseline of hitting the ball lower would be a couple things. So for me to hit the ball lower, the two main variables are dynamic loft and angle of attack. So the lower the loft, see the club is bent back, so that's the loft of the club. The lower the loft, the lower the ball. And the more I hit down on it, the lower the ball. So to hit the ball lower, you want less loft and hit more down. The first thing you do to do that is move the ball back in your stance. So if I want to hit a puncher lower shot than normal, more the ball's forward, harder to have shaft lean, I got more dynamic loft higher, ball more back, I'm going to hit more down on it with the handle more forward, which is the dynamic loft part. So if I want to go punch shot, I'd go ball back, grip down, stand closer to the ball, probably feet a little more narrow, and I'd be something like this. Now when I swing, I'm going to go about shoulder high with my hands. I'm going to hit down on the ball a lot and go about shoulder high into the follow through. And I'm really working to keep my handle more forward excessively throughout. Now there's different feels for it, but those are the basics. Dynamic loft, angle attack, ball back. So I'm gripping down on the club, thumbs pretty far down. Feet are a little narrow, I'm a little closer to it. Now I'm going to keep the handle forward, weight forward, hit down on the ball with the hands forward. And that's like a punch shot stinger, little 5-iron there. So we did a punch shot, we did a YouTube video punch shot, which should help for that one, Darren. Can you talk about how to hit more up with the driver? Ball position more forward being understood. What else should you check to make sure you're doing it, Matt? So Matt, the biggest thing to hit up on the driver is where the ball is relative to where your head or upper body are. Where the ball is relative to where your head is. Let's just keep it simple like that. The farther behind the ball your head is, the more you'll hit up on it. The farther behind the ball your head is, the more you'll hit up on it. So how would I keep my head behind the ball more? Well, the farther forward the ball is, like you said, would be part one. Either the ball's got to go more forward or my head's got to go more back to be able to do that. You with me on that? So the ball's forward to start with. Now that's static. I can't move that. So the only way I can get my head more back is by getting my head more back, right? Which would be right side bend. So if my head needs to be more back, I would start with little tilt or a lot of tilt. I'd start with a lot of tilt. So the more my head is back by getting my right shoulder close to my right hip, right side bend, more tilt will help me hit up on it. Backswing, big turn, keep my head back. And then most importantly on the downswing, when I start down, if my head works forward, I'm going to hit down on it. We see that all the time. Head tilted back, keep the head back, keep the head back as the hips push forward. Keep the head back as the hips push forward. So how you hit more up on the ball is by keeping your head more back, period. Head more farther behind the ball. You tilt more out of dress, you keep it back during the backswing, and then most importantly, you keep it back during the downswing. So the drill for that, to kind of start with, would be having the object over your lead shoulder. Matt, we did 2 good videos on this for you to watch. One is hit the ball higher and farther by keeping your head more back, and 2 is head back, hips forward, driving it like the pros. Both of those will be better. Let's see, Pascal, what belt when you're playing golf? What belt? I don't even know if you mean like a belt I'm wearing. I don't even know, honestly, what kind of belt I have on or where it's from, to be completely honest with you. Let's see, drill for lead shoulder going back to flat and early extension on the backswing. So the drill for the lead shoulder going back to flat, always you fix it with the opposite. So like really for you, you don't need a drill so much as you need consistent video feedback from down the line and a checkpoint. So if you watch the video we just did on tilting the left shoulder in the backswing, search my name and tilting left shoulder, you'll see a drill where you have the ball and then you have a second ball about a foot outside of the first ball, like this. Club across your shoulders, get the grip of the club in between those 2 balls. It's gonna feel like your left shoulder's getting closer to your left hip, like you're doing a little bit of a kind of left side crunch as you make your backswing. If you really overdo it, it'll probably feel like your head's much down and closer to the ball more. It'll feel like your left shoulder's down towards your left shoe, something like that. If your hips go in as your shoulder goes back like this, you want to watch the hip depth video we did with Mike Malaska, where you feel like you're pulling a cable back. Something simple for that drill-wise would be a wall behind you, behind your right hip like this, and you're trying to feel like you're pushing your right hip back into the wall when you go back. So if I make a normal swing, left shoulder up, hips in, you feel left shoulder down, right butt cheek back. You feel like you're really creating depth with your right butt cheek during the backswing. That would be a starting point. Now, none of that matters if you don't use video, because you've got absolutely 0 clue if you did it right or not when you do it. None of us. How much do I need to exaggerate? More, sooner or less. So you have to use video. Draw a line down your butt. Draw a line 90 degrees to your shoulder line. Make your shoulders turn on the 90. Keep your right butt cheek on the backswing. Gene, head behind while hitting the driver as well on the shorter irons. So no, if you watch irons versus driver, search my name, Gene, in irons versus driver, you'll see the lead shoulder and the upper body with the irons are going to work a little bit more down and forward because we're trying to hit down and compress them. The driver is going to work a little down and forward, but will stay more back. And for a lot of long drivers, actually move more back into the follow through. So it is a little different. You watch that video, that'll show you. Scott, literal stuck, mental stuck. Yeah, unfortunately, that's a bigger, deeper issue, Scott, in terms of being mentally stuck than I could probably help with on the YouTube Live. Fortunately for you, you could go in, post your swing updates. We'll look at the mechanics. We'll talk about the mechanics. And then more importantly, we'll talk about your practice, because I don't think you get mentally stuck with what's going on if you're practicing how we suggest, which is putt first, chip second, hit balls third. And when you're hitting balls, doing the wedge warm-up, distance control, mechanics, iron grid, driver grid, I would bet with 99% certainty that you're not doing all 4 of those range phases. You're getting too stuck in the mechanics too often. I could be wrong. There's 1% chance I'm wrong on that, but I'm likely correct on that. And we likely need to change what you're actually doing, not just your swing mechanics, to change that. Let's see. Hey guys, played in wet conditions this weekend, and my right foot was slipping out from underneath me, mainly in my drives, and I struggle feeling weight over my right leg. Reverse pivot, question mark. Yeah, I would say, listen, if it's wet outside, you're probably going to slip a little. I don't know. You know, maybe you get better golf shoes with better grips on them, but I don't think there's any kind of big solution for that. I think you're likely going to slip a little when it's wet out. I think that's normal. Struggle feeling weight over my right leg, reverse pivot. Not sure on that either. We have to define what reverse pivot is and see what you mean by weight over the right leg. So RB1 Smith, maybe if you type another question with a little more clarity on the reverse pivot right leg part, maybe we can dig into that a little bit. Golf ball recommendations or steps to find the right ball to play. I say there's 2 good ways to find the right ball. One is get several of them, 3 or 4, play 5 to 10 rounds with each one, monitor results. The second thing, probably the best thing to do would be go get a fitting. So when you go get a club fitting, also do a ball fitting. If you have go to a good fitter, I'm sure they have several balls that you could try. So test several ones in the course, or go get a club fitting / ball fitting with a good club fitter would be my recommendation there. Jerry, pitching 30, 40, 50, 60-yard shots. I have the yips, sometimes shank them to the right. How can I stop that? Jerry, yeah, I have absolutely 0 idea on how to help you with that without seeing it. Just simply could be too many variables. I would suggest either join Cogorno-Golf.com so you can send in your videos I could help, or find a good coach to work with. And the reason that's the answer, Jerry, is because I could think of 15 things off the top of my head that you could be doing to cause that. And it could be as minor as a little setup issue. So for me to offer specific technical advice for that would be foolish at best. So I would find a good coach to work with. Alex, is there a common scenario that would be the cause for tennis elbow? You got these questions today. I don't know these. So no, I think that's very player specific. I think with tennis elbow, sometimes hitting on the mat too much, hitting on the mat too much versus grass. But David, I would say, or I'm sorry, Alex, I would say, work with a physical therapist, find a doctor to work with to work through that. I don't think tennis elbow is something that I see all the time. It comes up sometimes. And I think maybe someone hitting on a mat too much, maybe, but I would say talk to a physical therapist. David, closed club face. So I would have to turn a lot to square up on the club face. When hitting wedge shots, I keep my lower body quiet, but this leads to hooking shots or shanks. How do I fix this? I have a closed club face, so I would have to turn a lot to square the club face. When hitting wedge shots, I keep my lower body quiet. Yeah, so I would say that, David, don't keep your lower body quiet anymore with wedge shots. So like turn your body, right? So like if you have a closed club face and you need to turn, and then you're saying with your wedges you don't turn and hit bad shots, I'd say it sounds like you should turn, right? So increase the hip turn with the wedges. You don't need a quiet lower body with your wedges. Or make the club face less closed, right? What's a good app when recording and reviewing your swing? I think just a simple iPhone in slow motion is fine. A lot of players seem to like something like Huddle, Analyzer is what I use on my laptop, or V1. But a good phone, if you're working with a coach and you have a good checkpoint or two to go on, you don't really need an app. But I think having something like Live View behind you, or Huddle, where you can draw a line on and actually watch as you physically do it. Like a mirror is such a great training aid, but you can't hit a ball with that. Like you can look at it as you're moving, you can't hit a ball. That's what Live View is like, basically a mirror as you're hitting. So that I think is super cool. So like if I said, hey, keep your head on the wall, and you do it with just a mirror, I can see what that feels like, and that's good. But as soon as I try and replicate it and I'm not looking in the mirror, my feedback goes away. What's nice with Live View is you can look from here, literally have the Live View in front of you, draw a line so it's preset, and actually hit a ball keeping your head on it. So I think that's really cool feedback, and it records it. So I think that's the best one. Left shoulder moving down was a big feel for me. Love the content Facebook group. Thank you, sir. Yeah, some people who go too flat certainly need left shoulder down. I think not everyone needs to feel that, but there definitely needs to be some of that in the swings. Alonzo, been struggling with tucking my arms to my body as I'm making impact, and the ball goes straight left. Any ideas? Been struggling with tucking my arms to my body as I'm making impact, and the ball goes left straight. Struggling with tucking my arms to my body. So I'm not sure, Alonzo, if you mean like you want to have your arms more tucked to your body, or you're saying they are currently too tucked and you'd like to have them less tucked. If you're looking to have the arms closer to the body throughout, you're looking to have the elbows closer, you would want to do something like a tour striker ball between your forearms, or a bucket between your arms and chest. So if you would search my name and the width drill, that'll show you the bucket drill to do. That would be a good place to start, where you take a bucket, put it in between your chest, squeeze it together with your biceps. Tour striker smart ball. Tees or a tease or towel underneath your armpit, something along those lines, if I'm understanding your question correctly. Travis, when playing in tournaments, I tend to get off to a nervy bad start, and the club sometimes feels lighter than normal. Any suggestions how to get better starts in tournaments? Yeah, Travis, the number one way to get off to better starts in tournaments is to play more tournaments and do the thing more frequently. So it'd be like if I said to you, hey, I go give speeches and I get nervous and I mess up the beginning of my speeches when there's a crowd. What would you suggest to that person to do? Well, I'd say there's a couple of things you'd look at. One would be how often do you do the speeches? So someone who's been doing speeches for 30 years versus 1 year will probably get off to a better start. Someone who does 50 speeches a year versus 5. So I would look at the frequency of your tournaments, Travis. If you play in, let's say, 1 to 2 tournaments per month, that's very few relative to depending on what level you're at, right? Like a lot of the junior golfers that I coached forever would play 3 tournaments a week, So I think increase the frequency of the tournaments, and then you got to look at your warm-up routines. Are you doing everything you need to do? So that'd be the second thing. Play more. Warm-up routines. What are you doing before the round, right, to go play? And does that need to be adjusted? And the third thing is how you practice. Is how can you put yourself in practice in more competitive, nervous, pressure situations, so that by the time you actually get to the tournament, it's less different. Like if the tournament's the only time you're under pressure, that's so hard. Like if you can get practice rounds in, play for money, play with people that are uncomfortable, things like that. Those would be the 3 things that I would that I would look at for that. And then, you know, there's obviously little things, Travis. If we dug into like, for you specifically, if I could see a video of those first 4 holes, maybe your routine gets faster. Maybe you completely lose presence and maybe you walk faster. Maybe you're not really picking a good target. Maybe you're playing a shot shape you shouldn't play. Maybe you just need a backup tee shot. Your driver's a little wild, you play, you get in trouble, it goes from there. Maybe you 3-putt too often because your speed control with your putting is bad because you don't practice that enough. Maybe, you see what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of more variables we could dig into, but I'd have to kind of know more info to do that. Have a difficulty with slopey lies, side hill, downhill, side hill, etc., uphill, side hill. Yeah, I would say the best thing for that, because there's a lot of different things to do, is we have a hybrid and fairway masterclass you could purchase that I go through all the lies specifically. It's probably too long for me to do here, and I'm sure you could search on YouTube honestly and find some general info. For me to I'd say give advice for that, then we'd have to, a similar thing where I'd have to dig in a little bit better. What specifically do you struggle with the uphill, downhill, side hill? What's your normal swing look like? What's your normal miss? What adjustments are you making for those lies? And then what do you have to do kind of across the board? So I would search some general YouTube content on those if that does not help. Step 2 is I would do the videos that I talked about, purchase the masterclass. And if that doesn't help, step 3 would be joining Cogorno Golf, finding a good coach so we could kind of dig through the swing piece a little more. How to avoid deep divots with wedges. I would look at a couple things. You know, angle of attack and how far you hit down is going to be based on a couple pieces with the wedges. One is going to be where your body is, so the extension piece. So in the follow through, the more my hips are back, chest down, head forward, I'm going to hit more down. The more my hips are forward, shirt buttons up, head back, is going to be more shallow. So I would maybe start with that. Get your belt buckle forward, chest towards the sky, lengthen your legs into your follow through. Like if I did those with my wedges, that I would clip the ball pretty nice with. So hips, so let's just start with shirt buttons up, legs straightening, right? That would be a piece for me to take my belt buckle where it is and raise it as I'm turning this way, shirt buttons more up. The opposite of that, for me to hit more down, would be this way, which is like chest down, hips back, right? And then I'd also look at swing playing. So the more I swing outside, across, and this way, the more I'm going to hit down on it. That would be kind of deeper divot. The more I swing from inside, more like a draw pattern, that would be more shallow. So the more it's kind of here, under plane, club feeling like it's high and to the right, all of those things would help pick the ball more with less divot. So I'd probably start with those two. Swing plane more inside out, more extension and up on the way through. And then you got to look at some other little minor variables. Like you might just start with the ball too far back with your hands too far forward. Like this could be something as simple as when you take your setup, your ball's back by your right foot, your hands are forward, weight are forward. Like from here, I'm probably going to take a pretty big divot no matter what. So I'd make sure the ball is more middle, weight, evenly distributed, things like that as well. But those would be the in-swing pieces that I would start with. See, that's like a nice, easy question for me to answer on YouTube because I don't need to know much. Mark, lately I've been having way too much spin and huge loss of distance on drives, but it's straight still. What might I be doing wrong? Yeah, I'd think a couple pieces. Like one, I would get your clubs checked. So I would go to a club fitter. If there's too much spin and loss of distance, I would want to eliminate the easy part. If I have a club shaft, club head, ball, whatever issue, that'd be one part. The second thing I'd do would be spray the club face and see where I'm hitting the ball. If you're hitting the ball really low on the club face or too much towards the heel, typically the spin's going to go up too much. So I would eliminate those two variables first. Might have nothing to do with how you're swinging, might have a lot to do with how you're swinging, but I would do club fitting, spray the club face to your contact point, and then from there you'd go into your mechanical pieces. Usually someone who hits too much spin hits down on the ball too much. A lot of times when someone hits down on the ball too much, their head goes too far forward, they swing too far over the top. That's, I don't know, 80% of the time I'd see that. Now, are you in the 80%? I don't know for sure, but head forward, hit down, swing over the top. So if I want to take spin off, I would want to hit up the most. I would want to swing the club the most to the right, hit up the most on the ball, and I would want to hit the ball, ideally, somewhere high on the face or a little towards the toe. So I'd be looking at contact point high and towards the toe. If you're low and heely, you're in trouble. And then I'd look at angle of attack. You can get on like a TrackMan or something. And the more you hit up on the ball, the more you hit the ball higher in the face, the lower the spin's going to be, like a high boomerang hook. The more you hit down and left, the more spinny it's going to be. That's where I would start with. Another good question for me to answer. Hi, Eric. How much weight shift is happening in the backswing when hitting driver? I think I'm putting too much weight on my right side while driving will result in too high a launch. So yeah, I would say in terms of weight distribution, always with weight distribution, you have to talk about, am I talking about physical movement of my mass? Like how much does my body shift? Or am I talking pressure in my feet? Like I can shift pressure in my feet and have a lot of pressure in my right foot. Like right now, my body here, someone would say is perfectly centered. It really didn't move to the right at all. And I probably have 70% under my right leg right now. Now this, I think, would look like a 70% body shift. So there's a big difference between me moving my body versus my pressure. That's one. Two, I'd say some really good drivers of the ball move more to the right, some less, right? Some guys move mass and body to the right and then move back to the left. Old Tiger, when he hit it really good, 99, 98 prior to that, bigger shift off the ball and then he shifted back. Some guys don't shift at all and shift forward. So my textbook answer to that question would be how much weight shift is happening during the backswing hinge driver. I'd say in terms of pressure in your feet, you'd start somewhere close to 50-50. You could be 60-40 on your right or left, and it might not change the world. Backswing, you'd feel probably 70-30 on your right, but notice my body didn't go to the right a lot. 70-30 on my right, getting back to 70-30 left pretty early, and then pushing more up and forward. So you're shifting the pressure back and forth without a lot of mass movement would be my stock answer to that. Chase, just wanted to say thank you for helping me with my game. You're welcome, my friend. Over-exaggerating the movements, recording myself, and patience were a game changer. And that's about as good as you can say it, Chase, because that is the only way the game's going to change for everyone that's on here is over-exaggerating, recording, patience, and then I'd say like following a good practice plan. Leave on there. Alex, yeah, a lot of mat practice. Yeah, Alex, that could be it for the tennis elbow thing. Again, that's a educate, like that would be probably what I would hear the most when someone asks that or says that, is like they're practicing a lot on a mat or newly on a mat. Now I hit balls on a mat all the time and I don't ever have that, but I can remember when I first started hitting balls on a mat in the beginning that, okay, maybe I was having a little bit of that in there. So that would be a guess point. Best way to create a fade on the course without changing too many things. So yeah, there's different ways to do it. I would say the easiest way to play a fade without changing too many things is do most of it through the setup. So let's assume your normal swing just goes dead straight, which, you know, whatever, if that's true. Dead straight, Adam Scott, no curve. And you wanted to hit a fade. What I would do, so like if I was hitting a fade right now, let's say I pick a target in the distance. Let's say I want the ball to curve like 5 yards. So I've got a 7-iron. I'm going to hit it like 175. I want it to curve 5 yards. What I'm going to do is I'm going to point my club face about 5 yards left of my target. So like this would be like a normal stock fade. So flags in the middle. I'm going to point my club face about 15 feet left. I'm going to point my feet about 30 feet left. And now I'm going to swing a little bit more on my feet line. So my club face is 15 feet left of the target. My feet are 30 feet left of the target. I'm going to swing along my feet line. And that would be like kind of my stock curve. Now I could curve it. You might only want to curve it 5 feet. You might want to curve it more. You can exaggerate those. So my club face is pointed left of my flag, but it's open relative to my stance line. So my club face is 15 feet left. My feet are 30 feet left. I'm feeling like I'm swinging the club along my toe line. Now I preset the club slightly open at setup. So I'm just maintaining that the whole time. Now, maintaining a slightly open club face is going to depend, like what you need to feel to do that's going to depend on what you normally do. So for me, I hit a draw normally, like just make a normal golf swing, the ball draws a couple yards. So I need to actively feel like I'm keeping the club face open. Now, if you're someone who naturally fades and you want a bigger fade, you probably don't need to feel a ton. You just do the stance part. So if I want to do a draw, guaranteed draw, I would point my club face about 15 feet to the right and my feet 30 feet to the right. So my club face is 15 feet, my feet are 30, and now I'm swinging along this toe line, maintaining that club face alignment. And that would be the ball that's going to curve a little bit to the left. You can't see those, but those are all beautiful for me. So that would be like what I would call a simple way to do it. I think changing grip is tough and difficult. I've had a couple people who change grip to hit balls and have been pretty good at it, but that feels to me like too much. I think changing that. Some people I have don't change their stance line, and they simply move the ball position in the club face. So if they want to hit a draw, they keep their feet there. They just move the ball back, point the face to the right, swing to the right. So like I've had some good players who do this And so let's just say their normal is here. So here's a normal shot. Draw, they just put the ball back, point the face a little to the right, and swing more right. They don't aim more right, swing more right. Fade, they go ball forward, face more left, swing more left. And I've had people do that well. So I would maybe start with one of those. George, is it correct that for chipping, you want the angle of the club face perpendicular with the ground or toe up, but for a full swing angle of club face should be slightly closed at 30 degrees? So I would say yes in general, but with chipping, and this is something that I probably can clarify better with chipping videos moving forward than we've done. What I've kind of said about chipping since we started doing videos was like, hey, with a full swing, you want your club face tilted down, kind of even with your spine angle. The reason being with full swing, you don't need any bounce. You want leading edge. You want the shaft leaning forward, compression distance. With wedges, I always say, hey, get the club more toe up. Now you've got more bounce to work with, more finesse, etc. But the reality is, I think a lot of people take that as it's got to be straight toe up. Now, it only gets to the point of being toe up if it gets all the way parallel to the ground. So people used to send me videos of like guys chipping and the face would be tilted down, like, see, the thing should be tilted down. I'm like, no, like you're only halfway up. So if my club face is gradually rotating the toe up, but it's only halfway there, if I stop it right here, that club face is still tilted down. It just hasn't gotten high enough for it to get all the way to toe up. And it depends on the shot you're trying to hit. So if I want to hit a lower wedge shot, like a lower mid to low trajectory, and I just did a normal backswing, my club face is going to be tilted down a little because I'm going lower. If I wanted to go medium, it'd be a little closer to toe up. And if I wanted to go high, it'd be more toe up. It also depends. See, like I should have explained this better in some of the videos. It also depends on your club face at setup. So if I'm hitting a lower shot, my face is perfectly square at setup, and it's still square there. Now, if I preset the club for a high shot open this much, I'm already open 20 degrees. So with the same exact backswing, the club face is already going to be 20 degrees more open because I opened it more at setup. So in those finesse wedge videos we did, where I'm always like, hey, the face got to be more here, you got to keep in mind my face is also like this at setup. So half of that's already done because the face was open. So in recap, the club face during chip shots depends on where it is at setup and what kind of shot you want to hit. The more square the face is at setup, you're going to hit a medium to low shot. The face can be a little more tilted down because you're getting the handle forward anyway. Neutral to high, if the face is more open here, you're also going to have a little bit more open here. The higher the shot you want, the more toe up, to the point where you're like out of a bunker flop shot, you can go past toe up. So you have a ton of loft, ton of bounce. So that would be the longer version answer of that question. It's a good question. Jim, do you start your downswing with your legs and hip turn to keep your hands back to begin? Yeah, starting your downswing and what to feel. There's the general on paper, like let's measure in 3D what players do, and here's the answer. And then there's like, what do you need to do with that information? What does everyone need to feel? So what actually happens is it's like a ground up thing. Like that's cliche because that's what actually happens. If you measure good golfers and they start their downswing, now that's measuring what's actually happening. So when I start my downswing, there's pressure shifting into my lead foot. There's my lead leg going external. There's my pelvis. Really, it's reflexing. There's turning. There's multiple pelvis motions. Then my torso, my shoulders, arms, hands. It's more or less that to keep it simple. It's not that for every single golfer, but let's call it that. Now, here's the other thing. Like that's what actually happens. Feet, legs, hip, torso, shoulders, etc. But from like a brain perspective, that could all be happening from someone thinking swing the club. You know what I mean? Like from me, if you measured me with baseball and I thought throw the ball from here to there, what actually happens first is what? There's a shift of there's pressure moving, my arms are moving, all this is rotating open, all this stuff is happening, and my only thought is throw the ball. If I was playing baseball, right, or tennis, and my thought is swing the bat like this, I never thought foot, knee, hip, torso, tuck elbow in, hit, swing. I'm thinking there's ball, there's bat, and those things happen. So my point is, just because that's true, that it goes foot, knee, doesn't mean you need to think or feel that. That's one part. The second part is, it all depends on where you're coming from, right? The map analogy is the easiest. Like, you and I both want to get to California. You start in Florida, I start in Pennsylvania. Like we're both going to end up in Florida, or we're both going to end up in California, but we get there completely different ways. Meaning, if you're at the top and you start here, and I'm at the top and I start here, or I start here, where you are at the top is going to dictate what you need to feel to start down. So it's unfortunately not as simple as saying, yes, start with your lower body. Boom, every golfer should feel that, and utopia. That's not reality. Depends on what you're doing, depends on what that actually produces. I've had some golfers who think swing the club head and they start with their lower body open up this way. Other people, not so much. I'd say if you need more body rotation, you would want to feel like your body's opening and your arms and hands are staying back. If you don't need more body rotation, you don't really need to do that as much. The point there being getting the lead arm into the body a little bit more and creating a chain reaction of the lead shoulder going a little bit more internal, the shaft shallowing, the body rotation, giving your body time to open up. Like sort of the baseball model would be like this. Then you see the arms and hands go back as the foot goes forward. That would kind of be the sort of analogy there for that. So good question. My backswing, I'm finding it difficult to load weight into my right side. Oh, okay, so before, yeah. By reverse pivot, I mean my right leg straightens, my right leg straightens. So I'm finding it difficult to load weight into my right side. So we have to dig through that a little bit. You know, you'd record yourself from face on. I would draw a line up your trail leg on video, we'll put an object there, and I would say, hey, when you get to the top of your backswing, does your hip turn just a little bit inside of that line? If it breaks through the line, you have too much sway. If you created too much space, then that is a reverse pivot too much. So I would say the way to measure that, if you search, I think we did a drill called hip, how to turn your hips, and it was like really easy drill. It was in the thumbnail, and it's the video of the chair being this way, or search my name and sway. I would say that's ultimately how you would test that. Do you need to shift more to the right or not? And how to fix it. If you search my name and sway and the hip turn thing with the chair there, you will see it sounds to me like you're saying your hips are moving too much towards the target during the backswing. Always you fix a problem by doing the opposite and exaggerating. So if you know your hips move towards the target too much, you need to feel like they move away from the target too much. So if your hips move towards the target, hips turn too much, you need to feel like you sway your hips to the right. Like you're going to put a chair or object here and literally bump your hips to the right as you turn, because you'll never actually do that, but you'll have to feel that just to get to middle. Working on inside swing path creates push more than draws. Am I not swinging enough to the right? No, Jim, I would say if you're working on inside path and the ball's pushing and not curving left, your path is already to the right, which is causing the push. Your club face isn't closed enough to the path. That could be like multiple things you could do. I would check and see where's your club face pointed at setup. You could point it less to the right, like close it more. Doesn't need to be closed like to the target, just pointed less to the right of where it currently is. You could play around with ball position. Your ball position might be too far forward or back. You can change one or two pieces of your aim. But in general, the answer to your question is if it's going straight to the right, your path's already inside enough, your face is not close enough to the path, which leads to the next question, which is how do I fix that? And that depends on why that's happening. But I'd look at those variables. First, start with the club face at setup. Sometimes it's very, very simple. Lately, I'm pulling my short irons, pushing my long irons. Any obvious reasons? Pulling the short irons is a pretty clear indicator. I mean, there's a couple of variables. The ball's too far forward, or your aim too far left, or your downswing's too over the top. Kind of one of those three, likely. Ball's too far forward, your aim too far left, your swing too far over the top. Or it could be something as little as like you release the club too early, and that makes the face point too far to the left too early, and you hit a little bit of a pull. And then when you do the same thing with the longer clubs, you don't square it up as enough and it goes to the right. So I would go through a checklist and be like, all right, let me first check ball position, check the simple shit. Is my ball position too far forward, yes or no? And my aim good, yes or no? Okay, if that's off the map, then it's like swing direction or early release. I'm either over the top, in simple terms, like 95% of the time. I'm either over the top or I'm releasing it too early with my wrist angles. So, okay, am I too far over the top? Yes. Okay, I need to fix that. No, I'm not too far over the top. Okay, it's wrist angles. So how do I fix that? Well, that might be trail wrist bent longer, lead wrist more flex, something along those lines would be where I would start with that. What's your grip pressure on the club in the downswing? Is it the same at address? I've been trying to loosen things up, but I'm losing a little speed. Just wanted to know your thoughts. Yeah, Tom, I think grip pressure is an individual and personal thing. So I've had some players work with people who like the grip firmer and arms firmer, and they have success that way. I've seen work with, et cetera, people who are lighter and it works that way. Meaning Freddie Couples, obvious to me, seems like he holds the club very loose. Excellent golfer. Alex Noren, you watch, and he's got 97 blisters on his hands, and he's gripping the heck out of the club. World-class golfer. So if they both, like if Alex Noren went super loose and Fred Couples went super tight, would they both be as good or better? I don't know. It seems clear to me, I haven't measured it, that Freddie Couples is loose. And there was not. Maybe that's a little to do with the personality. Someone's looser, more laid back personality, a little looser. We did a video on grip pressure, and my like simple message, it could have been 30 seconds, was try and keep your grip pressure the same. So if you're going to start looser, keep it looser the whole time. Like you don't want to start loose and then grip it real tight when you go back, or grip it real tight when you come down. And if you're going to go tighter, keep it tighter the whole time. Generally speaking, I would say people who have the elbows flexing too much, poor impact conditions, chicken winging, elbows too far at the top, probably need to feel tighter, at least with the arms. Don't have to with the grip, you can with the grip, but I need to feel like my arms are like tighter and more locked for me to learn how to do that. I'd say the more advanced you go, the more freedom you have in terms of being a little bit looser, but it depends. But I would say you want to keep it the same. But that's one of those where I think if we measured 10 elite golfers, there could be 8 slightly different answers, you know? My wedge distance is really weak. I can't believe person who can hit 100 yard with 58 wedge easily. My swing is basically too much using right arm rotation, flipper, casting. How can I do? So I would say the first thing with if your wedge distance is really weak from a like mechanical standpoint is dynamic loft, which you said with like your right arm flipping. I mean, dynamic loft is the king or queen of the hill, right? So like the club face, I don't have my little pointer here. The more loft you have, the higher and shorter, the less loft, the lower and farther. So how you hit a ball farther, all else equal, is you take the loft of the club and you lessen it. Like, why does a 7-iron go farther than an 8-iron? Primarily because it has less loft. Okay, there's some a little longer, etc., but primarily because it has less loft. So how would you want to hit your sandwich farther? Less loft. So if you're saying your right hand throws and flips too much, you've already identified the problem. You need a solution. I would watch and follow the routine in the video we did called My Favorite Compression Drill Right Wrist, and I guide you through a progression of how to literally go step by step through it. You essentially need to learn how to keep your right wrist bent longer. How? By doing exactly that. With the video on, going slow, monitoring. There's no trick. You got to hit balls, record yourself, and start with hitting the ball like this, where your right wrist is going to be bent forever on a punch shot, and it just never throws. So when you come through, if your right wrist stays bent forever, the club will be to the right of your hands. So if my right wrist is bent and I have shaft lean and I hit a ball, right, like this, that should remain to the right of my hands. Left wrist bowed, right wrist is bent. If it gets to the left of my hands, that's like me throwing it. So it's just from basic function, my club is to the right of my hands, my club should be to the right of my hands. And then gradually working that up. So when you hit wedge shots, your right wrist is bent forever. The club head's to the right of your hands and lower than your hands. So like from here, so when I come through, like that ball I hit, I don't know, maybe 80 yards with that just little one. Now I would start with keeping the right wrist bent and keeping it lower. So can I do that? Now when I come through, and you got to learn how to hit it and put the brakes on. So my right wrist club is to the right of my hands and it's lower than my hands. It's lower than my hands and to the right of my hands. If you watch that right wrist compression thing, that would be that. And then you need to build a wedge system. Like part of our range routine is every single time you practice forever, you should be doing your wedge distance control. 2 balls to every distance, 30 to 120. So the compound inch now, but that would be where you start with. Now you got to start with the basics, like setup, make sure your weight's 50-50, 60-40, shafts leaning forward, club fit, like all the basic stuff. We have a wedge master class and we've got a bunch of wedge videos here you can watch just to fix that. So I've got real flicky. Compression is for me the most important thing. Draw, cut inside 50 yards. I've got real flicky. Yeah, so for compression, I would say that same thing I just said with my right wrist, or the compression drills with the left wrist, or we did a compression masterclass, which is the same thing, like step by step. So the compression masterclass would be the thing to do for that in terms of the drills, feels, etc. Cut or draw inside 150 to me is irrelevant, meaning there's no correct or incorrect answer in general, right? I would say You need to find a ball pattern that you can do and repeat and hit in the grid. So what you should be doing for your practice, like at our Cogorno Golf site, is you have a grid out there, and then you have to learn how to get the balls curving, start, curve, and finish within a grid with all your clubs. Now, ultimately, you need to decide whatever curve that you want to be able to do that makes that the easiest. So, yeah, I say in general, neither one are right. I'd find one where you own the most, where you can get the ball landing, you know, in the middle of the green consistently. Okay. Okay, I'm going slow. We got a lot more questions in here. Matt, some online teachers say to drive the right elbow in downswing and place it in front of the right hip. Could you explain this movement as opposed to just keeping it attached to the side of your torso? Yeah, Matt, I'm going to do one better. Search my name and passive release would be one. It's about a 15-minute video. Eric Cogorno passive release. And then search my name and trail shoulder external rotation. Trail shoulder external rotation. There's a video that has me kind of pointing my arm down this way. That's going to be about 30 minutes that specifically answers those questions. Watch those first. If that's not clear cut from there, come on back and we'll talk more about it. But that's going to do you much more justice than 30 seconds.
Or posted online. I think Matt just joined.
Oh, Matt, yeah, if you did, watch those two videos either way first. And then if you did already join the group in there, we can talk more about that there in detail. But those two videos are gonna go over everything. Jimmy, hey, coach, did you have your fitting with swing fit? I did not. Mary did, and she loved it. We're probably going to do something on our way back up in the springtime. Steven, Eric, biggest key for players like DJ Halvin, Morikawa, etc., who have shut face bowed wrist is still hitting a fade. Body rotation and swing direction. So the more that you have the club face more closed, like this, our audio is going to be a little bit of an issue, huh? With the wind stuff. So the more you have the club face closed with the bowed wrist, for me to hit a fade. So the only thing that's non-negotiable with a fade is your club face needs to be to the right of my club path. Or said differently, my club path needs to be to the left, for right-handed golfer, of my club face. That's it. Doesn't matter if I'm cup, bowed, flat, upside down, around, whatever. Like, that's what I need. So with my bowed wrist, my face here, that doesn't mean, like from here, the more closed my face is, if I need to have my path left of my club face and my face already closed, that means that I must get the club working more left, and I must have a lot of body rotation. Those would be like the simple ones. Lots of body rotation, club face more close. Are we going to set up and try it or no good? Yeah, okay. You want to do it right up here? Okay. I just didn't know if you need anything. I wanted to ask quick. Steven, Eric, biggest key. Nope, we already did. Jimmy, new irons and driver arrived 10 days ago. One round, one range session down. Been slammed with work. Getting used to stiffer shafts, larger grips. Going to take several weeks. Agree. Yeah, I think when you get new clubs, it will definitely take some time. I think, you know, sometimes more time, sometimes less. Like the more different your clubs are from what you had before, it will likely take more time to get used to it. If you go get a club fitting, you get clubs that are very similar, have only a minor tweak or two, then I'd say it's less of an adjustment, but definitely an adjustment period. When does the wrist hinge should start during the backswing? There are so many variations. Yeah, I think inherently there is no one right answer to that. So if meaning like we can talk about it as if there was like a model perfect swing, but again, if we took the 100 best golf swings or ball strikers in the world and you measured their hinge, it's not going to be exactly the same. I think the best answer to this question, if you search my name in backswing hinge, what's really nice about us having 700 YouTube videos is these questions come up and then we try and do a video on it. So it's a thorough answer. So when the wrist hinge should start during the backswing BK, search my name in backswing hinge. That's 10 to 15 minutes of very thorough. What you'll see in there with the irons is from setup, this angle that you have at address, which is how much hinge you have, changes very little from setup to takeaway. And then it starts to change from takeaway to the top. So my stock on paper test answer would be very little hinge from there to here, and then it's gradual from there to the top and in transition. Very little hinge from here to here, gradual from here to the top and in transition. That would be the like general average answer. Best tip to prevent early extension, head through the glass. So if you search my name in PGA Tour, we have so many early extension drills, masterclass, etc. Two things traditionally work. Someone who has early extension has the head, if you draw a line here and a line down the head, line down the butt. Early extension, the head comes off the line, the butt comes in from the line. So the head works back, the butt works in. To fix a problem, you always do the opposite and exaggerate. So you either, instead of the head coming back, need to feel the head go forward. I personally like that better. Or we said the hips go in, so the opposite of in is back. So you either could do the object back here, bag, etc., get the left butt, hamstring, seam line to the chair. That has worked successfully many times. You know, it cracks me up sometimes too. You put drills in and people are like, you know, this is right or this is wrong, whatever. I've had so many people fix early extension with the bag, drill, chair thing. So it's not like, that's not wrong. Just because you didn't do it or it didn't work for someone you know, doesn't mean it's right or wrong. Like, same with the head drill. I put the head drill, I'm like, that's not the right way to do it. No, like literally had hundreds of people do this successfully. So it's not an incorrect or correct drill. Like, it's just an option. I would say when you come in, getting the head working forward of the glass. So PGA Tour secrets, I think it was, for good iron play. The thumbnail's me like this, and you'd put a wall here, right, or stick or an object, and you're trying to feel like your head literally works forward, not this way, not really even down. I'm talking this way. Early extension, it comes back and up. You want to feel like it works down and forward, down and forward. Now, if I do that, my hip should go back to counterbalance. So that'd probably be my best tip, or any of the other drills with the object behind the leg, hip type of deal. Call me Mike. How does one know how much to open the stance in relation to how much one adds loft to the club, and how far apart should your feet be, such as using a wedge for pitching or chipping? So we'll start with the feet for wedge, chipping, pitching. In our chipping videos, I would advocate the heels being roughly 1 club head distance apart. You'll notice the toes are quite a bit more than that. We'll call that about 2 club heads apart because the front foot is flared. So how far apart should the feet be? The heels are about 1 club head. The toes are about 2 club heads. How far open should your stance be? There's variation. So I don't think there's one correct answer to that, Mike, or so-called Mike. I don't know. Some good players aim perfectly square. Some good players aim quite a bit open. Some good players chip more with closed style stance. So there is no correct answer to that, no matter what anyone thinks. There's just not. There's just different ways to do it. I would say the stock answer from what I would teach someone, maybe that's how I'll start answering. This is what I would teach someone. This is what I would teach someone with no previous anything, is I would aim my feet, my toes square, but then because I flare my foot open, my feet are technically now open a little bit. So my feet would be square, and then my front foot would be flared open. That's the only reason my stance is open. So it might be open 10 degrees. I also like with chipping to point the sternum slightly forward of the ball. So that gets your shoulders slightly open. So from this side, the feet would be perfectly square, but because I'm flaring my foot, it's open. I don't literally pull the foot back. I'm not literally pulling the foot back. It's flared open. And then I like to see the sternum be just slightly forward of the golf ball, so pointed a little forward. So it presets my low point forward, so the shoulders are slightly open. Those would be like the stock answers to that question. I would also say that, like, I think I could go, like, I don't think the open stance thing either, I wouldn't lose sleep over it. Like, I think I could go get 50% up and down, open, close, sideways. So I don't think that that's like the only net thing. I think the thing you got to watch if your stance gets too far open or too far closed is the effect on ball position and swing plan. The more open my stance is, the more back my ball gets, and the more outside and across I swing. The more closed my stance, the more forward the ball is, and the more inside out I'm going to swing. So that would be the only thing I would check if you have contact issues. But again, from a skill perspective, not super high up, but a good question. I think I answered that there. Kevin, how do you fix a long driver swing? You ready for this? You shorten it. Go ahead and you shorten it. Now, how do you shorten a long driver swing? Well, you got to find out why it's too long. Travis, we have a couple things. You could search my name in 3 reasons your backswing too long to fix them. You can search my name in efficient, how to make an efficient backswing. So there's a couple things you could do. It depends on why you're too long. If you're too long because you turn too much, maybe you turn 120, I would probably keep the big turning, quite frankly, but you could turn less. I had some mounts on here, but some people who turn way too much and it's too long, shorten the turn. You could be too long because you have too much hinge, and then you got to learn how to take the hinge out. That'd be a hanger drill. You could be too long because your arms travel too far, and you got to shorten your arm swing. How would I shorten my arm swing? Well, the first thing you got to come to grips with is if you're going to shorten your backswing and you're trying to shorten it, it's still going too long, you're not even in the ballpark of exaggeration. Like, you're not even close to the amount you need to exaggerate. Doesn't matter what you feel. It does not matter what you feel. If you say, hey, my driver swing's too long, and I say, all right, dude, Kevin, shorten that up. And you go, all right, I'm going to feel short, and you record it, and it shortens 1 inch. You're not even sniffing like how exaggerated you need to be. So on the next one, when I say shorten it up, I want you to make a backswing, And as soon as your hands get to your right thigh, you start your downswing. And then you're going to swing, you'll be like, oh, I don't even know if I can do that. And you're going to do it, and the club's going to go here, right? It's going to shorten about a foot. And now you know that you need to feel, for the time being, that your hands only go to your thigh to shorten your downswing, and there's nothing to do about it. That is what it is, because you went long for that far. So that would be my suggestion. Start your downswing dramatically sooner. Maybe don't even start your backswing. Just go right from here into this, to your back. One easy drill to do would be put an object stick underneath your trail arm like this. So most of it's hanging out in front of you. When you make a backswing, as soon as this hits your trail arm or your lead arm, which should be roughly parallel to the ground, that's your sign for you to start your downswing. So when you do it and you actually hit it, you'll be about here. But when you do it with motion and momentum, you're going to travel a little bit farther. So that would be a good drill to start with. But you got to videotape yourself. Like when I shortened my backswing, when it was long, and I kept going shorter, the guy kept going nope. I kept going shorter, the guy kept going nope. And finally I did a swing where my feel was that my hands got to my hip, and then I started my downswing. That's what I felt like. And I did it as a joke to be like, look how short this is going to be. And then we recorded it from face on. It was exactly the length I wanted. And that's fine. Like people looking there like, oh, that can't be right. No, that's right. Like you need to feel that right now to get to the point where it's that short. Paula, James, son is struggling to continue rotating through impact. He stalls. I see it on video. Hands get flippy. I can't figure out how to fix this and get proper shafting tips. I would say, James, the thing is too, with an 11-year-old, that's very common. And I don't even know that I would fix it. The issue is, as the players are younger, they don't have enough strength. So the lack of strength in the body, like I've seen, I don't know, maybe I'll say hundreds. That might be an exaggeration. But I've seen so many good players who are 11, 10, 11, 12, 9, 8, 13, who aren't strong enough. And to try and hit the ball far, they get their hips way open. They're up on their toes. They're slinging it way inside out. And then it's a huge flip stall. And there's nothing to fix yet. And when I was in the beginning, I would see that on picture when I was coaching, and I was kind of inexperienced, and I'd try and fix that to change the look. And you can't yet, because they don't have enough strength to manage the constant rotation, the club head, to hit the ball high and far enough. Like they do that as a speed producer generator. And I think at that age, 11, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, you want to get them to hit the ball as far as they can typically, and then clean up the direction later, because it's harder to get distance as you get older versus when you're younger. So my general advice would be 8 times out of 10, James, I would not try and fix that. I would allow for it. Now, when he gets to be 15, 16, 17, 18, gets a little stronger, then I would start to neutralize that a little bit. And I wouldn't worry, because that's something you can neutralize later. There are probably every really good player on the PGA Tour, if you look back at their 8, 9, 10, 11, 90% of them look like that, you know, where they're like that. Even you look at Tiger pictures when he was like in high school, hips are way up and forward, head, shoulders back, whatever. And he literally won every national tournament known to man. So it's a good question. That would be my answer, James. That would not be my answer if he was like 16, but I think because he's 11. I would say as someone who's 11, if you could figure out a way to get him to build the habits of every single time you go practice, go immediately to the putting green and putt for 15 minutes, and then chip for 15 minutes, and then hit balls for 30. Like that should be his 1 hour practice session. And anytime over that hour, I would do on-course stuff. Like that would be beautiful. And then just follow the putting, chipping practice routine. So he does his stock mechanical stuff. He does skill building in the middle. Then he does a game at the end to win his way off the green. And he does mechanical stuff with chipping, skill building landing zones, and then he does up and down games to win his way off. So competitive the whole time. And then go to the range, do wedge warm up, distance control, then do some mechanics, then do iron grids, driver grids, course-like stuff. That's stock answer. Okay, we have 1.5 minutes. Let's see what we can do here. Our last one of the season. Everyone's very upset. Okay, let's see. Mom. Hi, Coach. Apologies if this is a sensitive question, no worries. But what do you like about what Mike Malaska teaches to increase club head speed as compared to Paul Wilson, effortless body swing, and loose wrists? So I've seen Paul Wilson only as of a couple months ago because someone brought him up. So I've never watched any of his videos. Excuse me. That's a lie. I watched 2 of them. I watched 2 of his videos. And they weren't like mechanical videos or something else. So I can't speak to the Paul Wilson. And Mike Malaska, I've watched his videos, we've done videos with, but I've still never seen him teach. So like, you know, what we talk about in YouTube videos versus what you teach someone is always going to be 2 different things. And based on our trip, and we did all these videos, met all these coaches, like I think 98% of the time, someone's video you watch, if there was a player in front of us, we would likely all do basically the same thing. Maybe a little different, maybe get to the end result a little different, but like almost what I was saying. So I would say in general, I can talk about Mike Malaska. I think he's not as successful as he is by accident. So I think he's tremendous. He was great when we did videos. Very, very cool, genuine guy on and off the course. I'll have to watch more Paul Wilson's stuff. And I think anyone that gets the job done, like people ask me a lot about Mike, who's Mike Bender. You know, he does a lot of stuff different with the hips, pelvis, and stuff than we do in our videos. But like, he's not Mike Bender by accident. So even if I look at that, I'm like, oh man, I don't like that amount of hip slide. Like, that's too much upper body tilt. Well, that to me means I got to go watch him coach. I got to ask him some questions. I need to like learn more about what he's doing that makes it work. It's not inherently wrong, you know, clearly, but and really it's just how you match the stuff up. So if you're going to go more lateral slide, more hip rotation, some of these things, you know, that you might see with Mike Bender, I'll just use an example. That's why he adds a lot of supination late. He keeps the head back, the swing direction more to the right. Like, it's a nice draw pattern you could build in, but you got to put all the pieces of the puzzle together to make it work. Versus like Gigi, who if you watch his players, would do the exact opposite of Mike Bender. And both of them have literally world-class players winning like the top tournaments in the world and can get an everyday golfer way better. So they can both work. You just gotta match them up. So, all right, we're past our hour. I apologize I didn't get through everything. I just did see Mark from Myrtle. What's up? Mary was just down there. So that's it, guys. This is going to be the last episode for season 2. We'll monitor. I don't think we have any messages. I think that's just it for our season 2. This is another fun year. Obviously, appreciate you guys coming out on Mondays and a little bit earlier today. We'll see over the winter as we go down to Florida. We're going to be in Florida for most of the winter in Southeast Florida, the Boca del Rey area, if you guys are down there. And yeah, and we'll see about next year when we come back up to Bethlehem and perhaps a season 3, maybe season 3, maybe not. We'll talk about it. We'll figure it out. But for all you guys that do want any coaching, you guys know CogornoGolf.com. We'll keep doing the YouTube videos. We're going to try and do a lot more collaborations again this winter. So you guys can look out for that. And we can appreciate the continued support. Thank you guys for all being here. And we'll talk to you all soon.